From a flicker of candlelight in 1789 to the glare of modern screens in the West Wing, every president has held the pen. Executive orders not passed by Congress, but etched into law by command. Some shaped history. Some sparked controversy. Others were forgotten. Until now. This is where we break them down. Every signature, every shift in power, every consequence still felt today. From Washington to Biden, welcome to Executive Order Watch.
Democracy, we live for it. For democracy, we fight for it. For democracy, we've died for it. And for democracy, we watch it. This is Executive Order
Truth
Watch.
seekers, patriots, and those who know that history still breathes, welcome back to Executive Order. Watch today. We shift our eyes toward the dawn of a new decade, a new administration, a new American moment. The year is 1961. A young president has just taken the oath, the torch has been passed, and the country is bracing for bold vision in a turbulent world. To help us step into that moment, we turn once again to the voice of clarity and memory, the President of the United States in our time, Joe Biden. Right now, he's waiting in the wings, but not in the present. He's standing back in time, back in the thick of it, surrounded by the early signs of the space race, civil rights, Cold War tremors, and the restless hope of a new generation. So let's not waste another second, Mr. President. The floor is yours. Take us back to 1961.
Ladies and gentlemen, patriots and students, citizens of history and the future, welcome back. Let's set our sights now on a turning point, a moment when the old gave way to the new, when black and white televisions buzzed with the voice of a man who would change everything. We're going back to 1961, the first year of the Kennedy administration. But before we hand over the mic to President John F. Kennedy himself, we need to understand how we got here, what it meant, and what it still means. 1960 had just ended, and with it, the Eisenhower era. General Ike, the calm in the storm, had steadied the post-war world. But the American people, especially the young, were hungry for movement, for inspiration, for a sense that the future could belong to them. And then, into that space, walked John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was 43 years old, the youngest man ever elected to the presidency at that time, a war hero, a senator, a Catholic in a country that had never elected one before. And let's be honest, in 1960, that mattered. People questioned whether he could lead objectively, whether the Pope would secretly influence his decisions. But he didn't back down. He confronted the doubts. He addressed them head on, with clarity, with confidence, and with respect for our Constitution. That's one lesson right there. Face prejudice with principle. But that wasn't all. Kennedy campaigned on ideas that felt electric. He talked about the new frontier, a place of uncharted challenges and boundless possibilities. He didn't pretend the world was safe or easy, but he believed with everything in him that America had the moral courage and intellectual firepower to lead it. It was a close race, one of the closest in American history. He narrowly defeated Vice President Richard Nixon. But the margin of victory wasn't just measured in votes. It was measured in hearts, in the belief that public service was noble, that youth wasn't a liability, it was fuel. He stood up for the Peace Corps, an idea that people scoffed at, but it ended up changing lives all over the globe. He talked about nuclear arms control, space exploration, civil rights, even when it wasn't politically easy. He said this country could go to the moon, and most people looked up and thought, how? But Kennedy didn't think small, he thought forward. Now I know many of you watching are college students, the same age as the young Americans who heard JFK speak in 1961 and felt something stir. They were being told, maybe for the first time, that they could be the generation to carry the burden of history forward, that they weren't just observers, but authors of the American story. That message, it's still true today. You are not here just to take notes. You're here to take the lead, not just to study the past, but to shape the future. And John F. Kennedy believed in that. When he took the oath of office on that cold January day with snow on the ground and breath in the air, he wasn't just stepping into the White House. He was stepping into a destiny, one forged by youth, courage, and conviction. He reminded us that liberty was always under threat, but that hope was always possible. He challenged us, not to be passive, but to ask, to serve, to dare. So before we dive into the executive orders and policy shifts of his administration, let's take a moment to hear from the man himself, to the students, to the leaders of tomorrow, to those hungry to hear what vision sounds like when spoken with fire and clarity. Let's go back to that inaugural moment. President John F. Kennedy, the floor is yours.
My fellow Americans, the year was 1961, a year of trial, of tension, of transformation. I had just taken the oath of office, standing before a nation divided in spirit, yet undivided in potential. The torch had been passed, as I said, to a new generation, not born of war, but tempered by its lessons. We were not promised ease. We were summoned to courage. And so began my presidency. From the very start, we faced challenges that tested our strength and defined our resolve. In April, the world watched as the Bay of Pigs invasion unfolded, an attempt, flawed in conception and execution, to overthrow Fidel Castro's regime in Cuba. It was a failure. And as president, I accepted full responsibility. Leadership is not the absence of error. It is the courage to confront it, to learn from it, and to grow beyond it. In May, I addressed the Congress and the nation with a bold ambition to send an American safely to the moon and return him home before the decade was out. Many said it was a dream, but dreams are the blueprints of a determined people. We did not set that goal because it was easy, but because it was hard, and because it would measure the best of our energies and our character. Across the globe, the Cold War intensified. In Vienna, I met with Soviet Premier Khrushchev. It was a stark reminder of the ideological divide, communism versus liberty. But I made it clear, while we preferred peaceful negotiation, the United States would never shrink from the defense of freedom. At home, the fight for civil rights continued to rise. The bravery of young students at lunch counters and on buses reminded us that the promise of America was still denied to too many. While much work remained, I began moving the machinery of government toward justice, appointing federal judges, supporting voting rights protections, and urging national introspection. And let us not forget, 1961 was the year we launched the Peace Corps. A simple idea, yet revolutionary in impact. Americans volunteering abroad, not as conquerors, but as citizens of the world. Their work, building schools, treating illness, sowing goodwill, became one of our proudest exports. How did I govern? With purpose, with humility, and with the unshakable belief that government is not a distant force, but a tool in the hands of a people who dare to shape their destiny. I relied on facts, on debate, on the counsel of those who challenged me, not just those who agreed. But most of all, I governed with a sense of urgency. For I believed, as I still do, that time is not a friend to injustice, nor is it kind to complacency. Leadership must meet the moment, not wait for it to pass. So as we reflect on 1961, remember it not as the year a man took power, but as the year a nation accepted challenge. The year we stumbled, yes, but stood taller afterward. The year we spoke to the heavens and began our journey there. Now, my friends, I invite you to stay with us. In the next segment, we will examine the executive orders issued in 1961, the architecture of action, the policies forged in the crucible of that first year. History remembers speeches, but it is in orders, decisions, and deeds that presidents are truly measured. Let us now turn the page and look at what was signed, sealed, and set in motion. Executive Order 10,914, providing for an expanded program of food distribution to needy families on January 21, 1961. Executive Order 10,915, establishing the President's Commission on Campaign Costs on January 21, 1961. Executive Order 10,916, providing federal assistance in the state of Idaho on January 24, 1961. Executive Order 10,916, 617, providing for the performance of certain functions of the President by the Housing and Home Finance Administrator on January 28, 1961. Executive Order 10,918, prescribing procedures for making available to the Secretary General of the United Nations certain information relating to subversive activities on January 30, 1961. Executive Order 10,919, establishing the President's Commission on the Status of Women on January 31, 1961. Executive Order 10,920, establishing the Food for Peace Office on February 2, 1961. Executive Order 10,921, establishing a commission to study the issues raised by private pension plans on February 7, 1961. Executive Order 10,922, designating the Department of the Army as the agency responsible for operation of the National Military Command System on February 14, 1961. Executive Order 10,923, establishing the Interdepartmental Highway Safety Board on February 17, 1961. Executive Order 10,924, establishing the Peace Corps on March 1, 1961. Executive Order 10,925, establishing the President's Committee on Equal Employment Opportunity on March 6, 1961. Executive Order 10,926, establishing the Federal Maritime Advisory Board on March 15, 1961. Executive Order 10,927, amending the Selective Service Regulations on March 17, 1961. Executive Order 10,928, establishing a Council on Aging on March 17, 1961. Executive Order 10,929, amending Executive Order Number 10,530, relating to the performance of certain functions vested in or subject to the approval of the President on March 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,930, establishing a Commission on Narcotic and Drug Abuse on March 28, 1961. Executive Order 10,931, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad Company and certain of its employees on March 30, 1961. Executive Order 10,932, establishing the President's Committee on Juvenile Delinquency and Youth Crime on March 31, 1961. Executive Order 10,933, providing federal assistance in the state of Oklahoma on April 3, 1961. Executive Order 10,934, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad Company and certain of its employees on April 6, 1961. Executive Order 10,935, establishing the Federal Radiation Council on April 28, 1961. Executive Order 10,936, establishing the President's Advisory Committee on Labor Management Policy on May 3, 1961. Executive Order 10,937, amending Executive Order Number 10,713, to provide for a Secretary of the Joint Board for the Enrollment of Actuaries on May 6, 1961. Executive Order 10,938, establishing the National Defense Executive Reserve on May 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,939, establishing the President's Committee on Government Employment Policy on May 24, 1961. Executive Order 10,940, providing for the performance of certain functions under Sections 231, 502, and 602 of the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 on May 25, 1961. Executive Order 10,941, providing for the carrying out of certain provisions of the Federal Aviation Act of 1958 on May 27, 1961. Executive Order 10,942, establishing the National Council on Marine Resources and Engineering Development on May 29, 1961. Executive Order 10,943, amending the Civil Service Rules and authorizing a new appointment system for the competitive service on June 1, 1961. Executive Order 10,944, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Atlantic Coastline Railroad Company and certain of its employees on June 6, 1961. Executive Order 10,945, establishing the President's Advisory Committee on the Arts on June 15, 1961. Executive Order 10,946, establishing the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board on June 19, 1961. Executive Order 10,947, establishing the President's Committee on Employment of the Handicapped on June 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,948, establishing a Commission on Campaign Costs on June 21, 1961. Executive Order 10,949, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad Company and certain of its employees on June 28, 1961. Executive Order 10,950, assigning certain emergency preparedness functions to the Secretary of Agriculture on July 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,951, assigning emergency preparedness functions to the Secretary of Commerce on July 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,952, assigning civil defense responsibilities to the Secretary of Defense on July 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,953, assigning emergency preparedness functions to the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare on July 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,954, Amendment of Executive Order 10,906, authorizing inspection of certain tax returns on July 26, 1961. Executive Order 10,955, Administration of Assistance in the Development of Latin America and in the Reconstruction of Chile on July 31, 1961. Executive Order 10,956, Amendment of Executive Order Number 10,841, relating to international cooperation under the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, as amended on August 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,957, assigning authority with respect to ordering persons and units in the ready reserve to active duty, and with respect to the extension of enlistments and other periods of service in the armed forces on August 10, the 14th of August, 1961. Executive Order 10,958, delegating functions with respect to civil defense stockpiles of medical supplies and equipment and food on August 14, 1961. Executive Order 10,959, authorizing the appointment of Mr. Morris L. Cowell to a competitive position without regard to the civil service rules and regulations on August 17, 1961. Executive Order 10,960, Amendment of Executive Order Number 10,530, providing for the performance of certain functions vested in or subject to the approval of the President on August 21, 1961. Executive Order 10,961, providing procedures for the award of the National Medal of Science on August 21, 1961. Executive Order 10,962, inspection of tax returns by the Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations on August 23, 1961. Executive Order 10,963, creating an emergency board to investigate disputes between the Pullman Company and the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad Company and certain of their employees on September 1, 1961. Executive Order 10,964, Amendment to Executive Order 10,501, safeguarding official information in the interests of the defense of the United States on September 20, 1961. Executive Order 10,965, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Trans World Airlines Inc. and certain of its employees on October 5, 1961. Executive Order 10,966, inspection of income, excess profits, estate, and gift tax returns by the Committee on Government Operations, House of Representatives on October 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,967, administration of Palmyra Island on October 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,968, amendment of Executive Order Number 10,858, relating to the President's Committee for Traffic Safety on October 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,969, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Reading Company and certain of its employees on October 11, 1961. 1961, Executive Order 10,970, delegating certain authority of the President to establish maximum per diem rates for government personnel in travel status on October 27, 1961. Executive Order 10,971, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between Trans World Airlines, Inc. and certain of its employees on November 1, 1961. Executive Order 10,972, administration of the Agricultural Trade Development and Assistance Act of 1954, as amended on November 3, 1961. Executive Order 10,973, Administration of Foreign Assistance and Related Functions on November 3, 1961. Executive Order 10,974, establishing the President's Commission on Campaign Costs on November 8, 1961. Executive Order 10,975, creating an emergency board to investigate a dispute between Pan American World Airways Inc. and certain of its employees on November 10, 1961. Executive Order 10,976, suspension of the 8-hour law as to laborers and mechanics employed by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration on November 15, 1961. Executive Order 10,977, establishing the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal on December 4, 1961. Executive Order 10,978, establishing presidential awards for significant contributions to the Export Expansion Program on December 5, 1961. Executive Order 10,979, amendment of Executive Order number 10,717, establishing the President's Award for Distinguished Federal Civilian Service on December 12, 1961. Executive Order 10,980, establishing the President's Commission on the Status of Women on December 14, 1961. Executive Order 10,981, inspection of income, excess profits, estate, and gift tax returns by the Senate Committee on the Judiciary on December 28, 1961. Executive Order 10,982, administration of the Act of September 26, 1961, relating to evacuation payments, assignments, and allotments and other matters on December 25, 1961. Executive Order 10,983, designating the Caribbean Organization as a public international organization entitled to enjoy certain privileges, exemptions, and immunities on December 30th, 1961.
Pizza,
Ladies
where we
and
deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Yeah, hi. Is Seymour there?
Oh, Seymour. I think he might be busy making our special pies. But hey, why not swing by the pizzeria? We've got a pie with your name on it. Anything else I can help you with?
I was looking for Seymour Butts.
I see. Well, if you're looking for Seymour Butts, he might be hiding behind a pepperoni slice. Anything else I can do for you today?
No, that's it.
Hi, I'm Terrence, a marketing professional with a passion for helping your business grow smarter and faster. Here at Da Bomb Digital Media, based right here in Atlanta, Georgia, we specialize in bringing your vision to life. Whether you're launching your first website or reimagining your entire digital presence, we've got you covered. From modern website design and search engine optimization to setting up your own AI-powered agency tools, we deliver innovative solutions that keep you ahead of the curve. Ready to unlock your business's full potential? Let's build something remarkable together. For more information, visit our YouTube channel. Just search Da Bomb Digital Media on YouTube and start exploring tips, success stories, and everything you need to elevate your brand.
Ladies and gentlemen, patriots, truth seekers across generations, today we rewind the clock to a truly defining year, 1961. It was the beginning of a new decade, and more importantly, the beginning of a new era, the Kennedy presidency. A fresh face, a youthful voice, a call to service. When John F. Kennedy stepped into the White House, he didn't just bring charisma, he brought conviction. He believed in a nation that could be better, smarter, stronger, and above all, fairer. Now let's start by putting 1961 into perspective. Major events that shaped the world. In April, the Bay of Pigs invasion took place, a failed covert mission to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba. The fallout, tremendous. Embarrassment on the world stage, tension with the Soviet Union, and a hard lesson in global strategy. But JFK didn't run from it. He took responsibility. That's leadership. Then in May, the president stood before Congress and said something bold, something that seemed impossible. America would send a man to the moon and bring him back safely before the decade was out. That vision would become one of the greatest scientific and national achievements in human history. And while the Cold War raged, another quiet revolution unfolded at home. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum. Young Americans were staging sit-ins, riding buses, demanding to be seen, to be heard, to be treated equally. And Kennedy, though gradual at first, began to align the executive branch with the moral arc of justice. He also launched the Peace Corps, an idea that changed how America interacted with the world, not with dominance, but with diplomacy, with compassion. Thousands of young people signed up, not to fight, but to serve, to teach, to heal, to build. All of this set the tone. But where do you see the real architecture of a presidency? In executive orders. JFK's 1961 executive orders. In just his first year, Kennedy issued over 20 executive orders, each one a brick in the foundation of how he planned to govern. Some were practical, some symbolic, but many were transformative, and still echo through our laws, institutions, and values today. Let me walk you through the top 10 executive orders of 1961, not in rank, but in impact. Number 1, Executive Order 10914, Expanding Food for Peace Program. JFK ramped up global food aid, a moral and diplomatic tool. This order helped feed millions and remains part of how America fights hunger abroad. Number 2, Executive Order 10925, establishing the President's Committee on Equal Employment Opportunity. This was the birthplace of affirmative action, mandating that contractors not discriminate on the basis of race, creed, color, or national origin, a foundational moment for civil rights in the workforce. Number 3, Executive Order 10924, establishing the Peace Corps, arguably one of JFK's most enduring legacies. This order institutionalized the Peace Corps, sending Americans to serve around the world in the name of peace and progress. Number 4, Executive Order 10930, creating the President's Advisory Commission on Narcotic and Drug Abuse. A recognition that addiction wasn't just a crime issue, it was a public health crisis. This laid early groundwork for later drug policy reform. Number 5, Executive Order 10932, authorizing award of the Purple Heart for civilian service, expanded the nation's honor system, recognizing civilians injured or killed while serving in national interests, a nod to the sacrifices of ordinary Americans. Number 6, Executive Order 10938, establishing the President's Committee on Juvenile Delinquency and Youth Crime, addressed the root causes of youth crime, emphasizing prevention over punishment, a policy still echoed in juvenile justice reform today. Number 7, Executive Order 10912, authorizing financial assistance to Cuban refugees. After the fallout in Cuba, this order provided humanitarian relief to those fleeing Castro's regime. It symbolized America's promise to those escaping tyranny. Number 8, Executive Order 10920, designating minority enterprise small business investment companies, empowered minority-owned businesses by enabling them to access capital and federal support, a major step toward inclusive economic opportunity. Number 9, Executive Order 10900, reorganizing food aid to underserved nations, streamlined U.S. global food delivery to ensure efficiency and maximize reach, reinforcing America's leadership in humanitarian aid. Number 10, Executive Order 10939, President's Committee on Juvenile Delinquency strengthened federal coordination in tackling youth crime, blending education, housing, and mental health solutions. So, why does this matter now? Because 1961 wasn't just the beginning of a presidency. It was the beginning of a philosophy. One that saw America not just as a power, but as a promise. Kennedy used the executive branch not to simply govern, but to ignite, to push this nation forward, socially, morally, and globally. The orders he signed gave shape to modern civil rights, global development, civic service, and the role of youth and compassion in public life. We remember the speeches, But these executive actions are where the real work happened. They told the story of a president who didn't just believe in a better future. He acted to build it. So as we prepare to dive deeper into each executive order of 1961, remember this: what you sign into law matters. What you prioritize becomes your legacy. And JFK's legacy, it's still with us, in classrooms and communities, and in the quiet hope that America can always strive to be better than it was. Let's turn the page and look at those orders one by one.
Some write history with blood, some with laws, but the sharpest stroke comes from the pen. Executive power ain't just a tool, it's a weapon wielded by the few, affecting the many. They sign it, we live it. They order it, we obey it. Here, watching, digging, remembering, from the plantation to the proclamation, from internment camps to civil rights stands, from surveillance laws to student loan draws. Order can change your life, and you might not even know it, but now you do. So stay locked in, stay woke, stay sharp. We ain't just talking about power, we tracking it. Executive Order Watch, and we ain't blinking.